Good morning, team. It is Tuesday. That means we're here in English to talk about immigration news. Let's just say we got plenty to discuss today. I know a lot of people, even those who are trying to stay off socials and out of the news, are aware that something is going on. Let's talk all about it. As a reminder, I'm Kate, Lincoln-Goldfinch. I am an immigration attorney based in Austin. I've been doing this work for 20 years. I'm also running for State House of Representatives in District 50. I am giving free legal consultations to the immigrant community, both in person and virtually. Immigration law is federal. I can help people in all the 50 states. If you or someone you love needs an immigration consultation, feel free to just DM me on any of my socials and my team will get you or your person set up with a consultation. That is my number one piece of advice for immigrants right now, is that you consult with a lawyer and you get a plan in place, both to get legal status, but also a safety plan to protect yourself. As a reminder, we have a program called Peace of Mind. It's Luz en el Camino in Spanish. And this program is specifically for undocumented people who cannot get legal status right now. This is a way that you can get a letter of representation from us. We can collect your important documents. We have a hotline that you can call if something happens. You get a strategy session with a lawyer. This is a way that you can form a proactive relationship to protect yourself with a law firm, even if you can't get legal status. So even if you're in the camp of like, I'm undocumented, there's nothing I can do, still, I encourage you to reach out to see if you want to join our Peace of Mind program to help protect yourself. All right, let's start with Minnesota. Of course, as we all know by now, Trump sent in a bunch of federal law enforcement officers, both ICE and CBP, which is relevant, into Minneapolis. There was the killing of Renee Good, as we all saw, as she was in her car and was shot. Turns out the third shot is the one that killed her. That was the one that went into her head while she was already well past the agent. There was enormous uproar and upset over her murder. The administration immediately claimed that she was trying to go after the agent with her car. The videos that we've all seen absolutely do not support that. There was a lot of pushback from the people of Minneapolis. And I just have to say, I have personal ties to Minnesota. My husband's from there, so all my in-laws are from Minnesota. I go there regularly. I've lived there for a very short period of time in my youth, and Minnesota stock, like Minnesota folk, you know what they say, like Midwest, salt of the earth, like it is for real. Like in Minnesota, people help each other. People are real, they're authentic, they work hard, they support their neighbors. And the way that we have seen Minneapolis stand up for their people is very much a Minnesota trait. And I hope that Minnesotans feel very proud of yourselves for the way that you are showing the world how it's done. Like all of us in other states, down here in Texas, I'm in Austin, there's some like, how do we coordinate? Watching the way that people from Minneapolis have not only come out to the streets in like negative 10-degree weather to protest, but also the way that you are forming this network of support for your community is just so inspiring. It's so admirable. Really well done, Minneapolis, the people of Minneapolis, and the leadership, Mayor Jacob Fry, Governor Tim Walz, of course. It's really cool to see the way that the local and state government has stood up for people. But a showdown occurred. A showdown has occurred because Trump is vengeful. This whole thing started when the shooting in DC against the National Guardsman by someone who had nothing to do with Minnesota happened. And then Trump, for some reason, all of a sudden decided that, okay, now we're going to go after Minnesota. No connection whatsoever, by the way. But they go after Minnesota because what they say is that there's this rampant fraud. What has been reported is that there was some schemes when there was like post-COVID government, child care benefits, and there were some people who were claiming benefits for which they did not qualify. Okay. So, but the Trump administration decided that this is the reason to go into Minnesota because they want all of this data, guys. This is about surveillance and data. This is what they want. They want the Medicaid records, they want the food stamp records, and they want the voter rolls of Minnesota voters. They want data. Why would they want voter rolls? I mean, surveillance, to break people's privacy and to impact elections. That's why. Minnesota bravely stood up as one of many states that said, no, we're not going to turn over our voter rolls to you. That's illegal. We don't have to do that. Texas, meanwhile, where I sit, they were just like, here, we're first in line. Here you go. Our voter rolls have already been turned over. But in Minnesota, they're resisting. And we know that this is the reason that they went after Minnesota, because Pam Bondi, the attorney general, wrote a letter. These people are so dumb. Wrote a letter to Tim Walz telling him, if you want us out of your state, just turn over the voter rolls. Like right there, extortion in writing on a letter, on her letterhead. That is what this is about. This is about data and surveillance and taking away free and fair elections. And people like Renee Good and Alex Petty had to die over this war. So what happened was Renee Good died. There was still a lot of back and forth. Like a lot of the, immediately Kristi Noem, everybody was like, man, she was, going after the agents, da, 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 da. And there was still, and I know this from a lot of my comments in my videos on social media, a fair amount of people, Trumpers and MAGA folks, were still very much feeling like Renee deserved what she got, right? There was still a lot of sentiment on that front. Fast forward a few weeks over to the weekend with the outright murder of Alex Petty. And if you've watched the video, I mean, this is the thing about this era. We have video of all of this stuff. We cannot be gaslit because we've seen the footage. And there are probably 6 or 7 different points of view of the incident with Alex. Like you can very much get a real sense of what happened. He was standing in the street, not in the middle of an operation. He had his cell phone out. A CBP agent approached him, pushed him back. Another agent pushed a woman down next to him. He began helping her. They both got pepper sprayed. 7 agents tackled him to the ground. He was on all fours being pepper sprayed. One of the agents saw a gun for which he had a permit in the back of his waistband, took it out, threw it to the side. After they disarmed him, 2 agents shot him in the head 10 times. And one of them, this was one of the most disturbing things, is one of the agents, you could actually see him jumping up and down and clapping. And then of course, immediately the administration comes out and says he was intending to massacre agents. He was a domestic terrorist. Oh, but then we find out, who was this guy? He's an ICU nurse in a VA hospital with a legal permit to carry, and the videos don't support any of what they're telling us. It's just like this time, people can't buy it. People can't buy it anymore. Maybe they could believe you with Renee Good because there wasn't a video in the front of the car and all of that stuff. With Alex Petty, nobody's buying it. And then the tables started to turn. And this is where I really want to congratulate those of you who took some action over the weekend, because as we've been talking about on social media, public opinion does actually matter to the Trump administration. And I know we get sick and tired of like, call your legislator, call your legislator. Well, as soon as I saw what happened on Saturday morning, I called the chief of staff for a congressman, a friend of mine. And I was like, help me decide what to have people do, because is this just another call your legislator moment? And this person said, it's the public opinion. Yes, we need to call our legislators, but also we need to call the people who are intentionally oblivious. And I don't actually say that with judgment. I mean, I think it's fair to have judgment about that. But the people that who have taken Facebook and social media off their phone, they've turned off CNN, they are like living in their home in a snow day doing their embroidery because they don't want to know what's going on. Those are the people that we had to reach over the weekend. We still need to reach those folks. The job is not done. But you call those folks and you say, did you know what's going on? And they might know, like, oh yeah, there was another killing in Minnesota. No, you need to watch the video. And that sort of groundswell, plus the calls to the legislators, has been so impactful. I urge people to use a website called 5Calls, the number 5calls.org. They reported over the weekend they were getting one call every 4 seconds. And this is how people call their legislators. We know that the House had passed the funding bill with 7 Democrats, by the way, had voted for that. But the House had passed the funding bill, which included $60 billion for DHS. It's going to the Senate. And so also the job, in addition to like grassroots getting the word out, is getting to the Republican legislators, both the senators and the congressmen like Pete Sessions and Mike McCall, and telling them, do not vote for the Senate funding bill. Do not vote for additional funding for DHS. We need an investigation into what is going on. And all of those calls, y'all, mattered. They mattered. This is such an example of how this stuff actually makes a difference. You want to know why? Just yesterday, Governor Greg Abbott said that the administration needs to recalibrate. Ted Cruz came out and said that he was not in support of what was going on. Mike McCall, another Republican. Greg Bavino, the head of CBP, was demoted and is being sent to California. It's possible that Kristi Noem is going to be removed from her post. Donald Trump called Governor Walz and agreed to start removing troops from Minnesota. Why did this happen? Number one, because Alex Preddy was murdered. But number two, because we said no more. All of us. So if you are someone who had a conversation, who put something on social media, who called your legislator, who did something over the weekend, keep doing whatever you did because it worked. It's working and we need to keep it up. We know that the public support through the polls has fallen like 20. He's 24 points underwater, way down in the 30s for support of what's going on. So we need to keep going. Don't let, Tuesday take over your life and forget about what's going on. We don't want Alex Preddy to have died in vain. We want to keep up the job that we're doing. So well done, everybody who took some action. If you don't follow me on socials, join me and we can talk more about Alex Preddy. A lot of people who've known him and loved him are sharing things about him. Of course, it won't surprise you to hear this ICU VA nurse turned out to be a really great guy, really sweet and loving and good guy. And the people who knew him and worked with him are gushing about him. And so we're sharing a lot of those on my social media so we can also remember the man that he was. Okay, let's do some more news of the week. Minnesota has sued the administration over the actions. They said that the surge is illegal. This was in the New York Times. This has been reported in the New York Times. There's a hearing in the U.S. District Court in Minneapolis saying that the surge is unconstitutional. The Trump administration, of course, disagrees, but that lawsuit is happening. Next, the House, and I alluded to this, passed a $1 trillion government funding bill, which included $64 billion to the Department of Homeland Security, which in and of itself includes $10 billion for ICE alone. That passed the House with 7 Democrats supporting it, by the way. I don't have their names right now, but I'll do a reminder about that. They deserve our phone calls. But it's going to the Senate now. The Senate is now picking up this vote. We face a government shutdown by the end of this week if the Senate doesn't approve this, but there are some carve-outs that they can do to take away DHS funding and provide some oversight before they give that agency any more money. So we need to continue the pressure. The job is not over. Continue calling your senators, Cornyn and Cruz, here in the state of Texas. Feel free to call the governor's office too. But call your congressman. If you're calling a Lloyd Doggett or Greg Casar, you're preaching to the choir. I'm sure they would love to hear our support, but they're already on our team. The most impactful calls are the ones to the Republicans. And also they're the ones who are, the senators are the ones who have taken up the vote this week. More news. It was revealed on the Associated Press last week that by a couple of whistleblowers that a memo had been drafted and circulated, published, not just drafted, in May of last year, telling ICE agents that they can enter our homes without a judicial warrant, with something called an administrative warrant. Let me just clarify this for you guys. A judicial warrant is something that is covered under the Constitution, the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, which protects us against illegal search and seizure in this country. It is where we get the idea of due process and the idea that the police cannot just nab people off the street, and the idea that the police cannot enter our homes without a warrant. Because when the police want authority to go into someone's home, that's a big deal. They have to go before a judge, usually a magistrate, and they have to prepare evidence and say, Your Honor, here's the reason we want permission to break into this person's life and take away their liberty. And the judge looks at this independent third party judge looks at it and says, no, you don't have enough here, or okay, authorized. That's how this works. This is how the protection occurs. And then if they get it, then they get this judicial warrant signed by a judge with the name of the court, the signature of the judge, and they can go bust into somebody's door. Well, ICE has administrative warrants. Okay, it's like if I-205 is the form. And this we now know, I mean, it's a black hole what they do to create these administrative warrants, but it can be something as simple as an immigrant who failed to register under the registry requirement. It is not criminal violations. It does not require review by the judge. And despite what has been reported widely, it actually doesn't require a deportation order. So what people will tell you is that an administrative warrant means that somebody's been ordered deported. No, not necessarily. Also, people get ordered deported in absentia all the time because they're not properly notified of their hearings. I've worked on hundreds of these cases over the years. They just don't mail out a notice, order somebody deported in absentia, and then issue an administrative warrant for them. Administrative warrants are paperwork. They're an internal ICE paperwork. But what happened last year, and this wasn't heavily reported at the time, is that ICE uploaded almost 1 million of these warrants, and they continue to do more and more and more, into the criminal justice database. It's called NCIC. And this is the database that the cops use when they run somebody. When they check to see if you have a warrant, they put your information into NCIC. And if they get a hit, that flags for them that they need to take you in. But there's been so much confusion in law enforcement about these administrative warrants. Before this, they had never had admin warrants in their system. It's like one is coded with a W and the other is coded with an N. Like, it is not clear within their system that what the difference is. And so what this has done is it has created so much chaos within criminal justice departments all over the country, including here in Austin, where I live, where the police department, the sheriff's office, they don't necessarily already know how to distinguish. And so they're now holding people on these administrative warrants, in some cases, not knowing what they're doing. So it has essentially, even without these 287G cooperative agreements, the upload of these administrative warrants has essentially turned every law enforcement agency in the country into potentially an ICE enforcement agency. Scary, scary shit, y'all. And what this does is it sends a message to the people of the nation that we are no longer safe interacting with law enforcement. That is bad news bears. Bad news bears. When the majority of us are not comfortable interacting with law enforcement. And I say us because, just start with people of color. The Latino population alone in the state of Texas accounts for 43% of us. Then you add the Black population, the Asian population. We're well into the majority of the people in the state of Texas are people of color. When they don't feel comfortable calling the police, guess what happens? The police can't fight crime. Public safety suffers. And so that's what's happened with all of this. And so we really need to be pushing back and fighting on this idea that administrative warrants are judicial warrants, starting with this memo. We're going to be seeing lawsuits. But basically, y'all, just like what happened with Alex Preddy and Renee Good, we are the gatherers of evidence, us regular folk on the streets. We have to capture the evidence. Why? Because we don't trust the agency to conduct independent investigations for obvious reasons, to use their officers' own cameras and to investigate themselves. Hello. So we have to keep doing what we're doing. But you might say, like, Alex Petty got killed because he had a phone in his hand. I'm not pulling out my phone. Fair. Can we start trying to get more automated cameras going in our cars with dash cams, in our homes with cameras at the door, maybe cameras inside? Ring cameras apparently sometimes cooperate with Flock, so maybe not Ring. I don't know about the Meta glasses. Do we wear glasses? Like, we need to start considering how to create more evidence, video evidence of all of these violations, because it's really hard. This is what is hard for me as a lawyer to tell someone how to protect themselves against this policy, this memo that they can come into your home without a warrant. No, they can't. That's not legal. But if they do, it's probably not the best idea to pull out your own gun in that situation. Although Texas, I know everybody in Texas is like, you better freaking not try that here in this state. But we know what could happen. So if we're not trying to meet violence with violence, we need to have evidence of this stuff. And that actually reminds me of another point I want to make. Trump is dying to use the Insurrection Act against his own people. He has threatened it. He has talked about it. He wants it so badly. If he gets to call out the Insurrection Act, do you know what he gets to do? He gets to legit bring in the military against his own people. It becomes civil war. And guess what happens to elections? They don't happen. We cannot, as people of the resistance, we cannot give them the violence that they want in order to justify use of the Insurrection Act. That means we have to remain peaceful in our protests and in our resistance. We must. We must. So please, whatever you do, do not be the person that brings the violence that allows for the Insurrection Act. Don't be that person. You don't want to be that catalyst. Just record a bunch of stuff. It's working. Remember, it's working. We need to keep our calls up. We need to keep recording. We have positive momentum right now. Don't let it die. Keep calling. Everybody call Ted Cruz today. Everybody call John Cornyn today and tell them, do not vote for more funding for DHS this week. Allow the government shutdown. We're okay with that. Okay. We also, this one, y'all. There's more raids, ICE presence going on in Maine, and they love their stupid little names. This one they're calling Operation Catch of the Day. This is from the Bangor Daily News. ICE has detained about 100 people so far. They're cracking down in Portland and Lewiston. Again, this is a state that has a very low immigrant population, but they're going after the Somalis there in Maine. And you remember the governor of Maine, or was it the attorney general? I think it was the governor, had a public clash with Trump last year at a press conference. And that is what's driving all of this. He goes after the people who stand up to him. What the hell? Okay. Here are the Democrats who voted in favor of the spending bill to give $60 billion more dollars to DHS without oversight last week. Henry Cuellar, right here in Texas. Tom Suozzi in New York. Vicente Gonzalez here Texas. Laura Gillen, New York. Marie Gluesenkamp Perez in Washington. Jared Golden in Maine. And Don Davis in North Carolina. These are the Democrats who voted to expand funding to DHS just last week after the murder of Renee Good. Henry Cuellar, Tom Suozzi, Vincent Gonzalez, Laura Gillen, Marie Gluesenkamp Perez, Jared Golden, Don Davis. Shame on you. If you live in any of their districts, call them. Tell them how embarrassed you are, and they are not invited to come back for another term. All right, y'all. Let's get to your questions. I've got a bunch coming in. Ana Contreras, thanks for being here again. Good morning. We still do see detentions daily in Austin. Can you please tell the community what to do if traffic stop? Let's talk about Austin. There's been a lot about Austin. So last week, I posted on social media that I had a trusted source who informed me that ICE was coming to downtown Austin. They had booked rooms for 2 weeks in the Hyatt Regency downtown on Barton Springs. I was not the only provider of that information, but that particular video did go slightly viral. And a lot of other people had mentioned that they'd seen ICE presence. Then the mayor said, we've talked to ICE and they told us they're not coming to downtown Austin. That drove a public response of frustration from people saying, why are we believing what ICE is telling us? So here's what I want to say. We don't know what happened with the room block at the Hyatt. Did they come? We don't know. Did they go to Minnesota instead? Did they not come because there were protests? Nobody knows what's happening. I have not gotten updated information about that. It doesn't really actually matter, though, because there is increased ICE presence in Austin. We have seen reports in North Austin, Breaker, Runberg, Elgin, Manor, Buda, Kyle. These are all areas where we have actually seen ICE presence, not to mention the fact that DPS troopers are basically a bunch of ICE officers now running around. So we do have increased ICE presence in Austin. We do need to be cautious and careful. We know that because the legislature passed Senate Bill 4 and the city leadership is complying with Senate Bill 4, that we can't really count on our local and state leaders to protect us. I hate saying that. That's one of the reasons I'm running for office, by the way, because that's bullshit. But in Austin, we need to know how to protect ourselves. And again, we know that they're not necessarily following constitutional due process protections like the Fourth Amendment. But we have the Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. So if you get pulled over, if you have citizenship or permanent residence, and you want to carry that on you, feel free. That hopefully will dial things down. If you are undocumented, you're at risk. If you get detained, comply. Do not fight. They will become violent. We have seen that. They might shoot you, but they'll definitely hurt you and pepper spray you. I watched a 4-minute video. It was very painful, of a guy in Minnesota who was it was him and these 2 agents. They had him to the ground, arms behind his back, and were punching him in his ribs repeatedly while they were being filmed. They know that somebody's standing there filming, punching this guy. What are they doing when we're not filming? And at the end of that video, his wife, somebody goes down and tells his wife, your husband's being taken. She comes up and she's standing there trying to console him while he can't breathe. And he's saying I can't breathe, because they've punched him in his ribs cage so many times. This is what's happening. So don't resist. Don't get violent. They are thugs, goons, unpredictable, violent people. I will go so far as to say many of these agents are incels that Greg Bovino pulled out of their basement and they think that they're playing a real life video game. They are dangerous. We should comply so that we don't die. But we need recording of all of this. So record, remain silent. When you get to detention, call a lawyer. Don't sign anything. That's where we are. That's where we are now. We're not in you don't have to show them your ID. Don't get out of your car if they tell you to get out of your car. We're not in that era anymore, I'm sorry to say, because we know they're going to break your window. They're going to pull you out of the car. They're going to leave your child in the back seat if you're not in compliance. Sorry, Anna, I wish I had something else. Gloria Vera, besides voting in the midterms, what other steps can we take? For real, call your legislators. This isn't just call your legislators. The tides are turning. The Republicans are speaking out. Ted Cruz, Greg Abbott, Mike McCall, Republicans all over the country are literally coming out and saying, this is we're not maybe okay with this. Keep it coming, especially the Republicans. Call the Republicans. Tell them, do not vote for more funding for DHS this week. Don't you freaking dare. TikTok, can an approved asylum person married to an LPR file an I-485, have a legal entry, priority date is current, now in lawful status? Only if you've remained in lawful status, which I imagine you didn't unless you filed for asylum the day you came in. Like if you're, say you entered on a tourist visa, your tourist visa expired, you were in pending asylum status, you're not eligible to adjust based on a permanent resident spouse with a 485. Your spouse should naturalize first and then you should adjust. But this is something I'd like to check the timeline of everything to confirm in a consultation. It's free. Consultations are free. Just DM me and we can take a look at everything. Roberto, tuve un problema de violencia hace 3 años, califico. Quizás sí, hay una visa para víctimas de violencia. Si hizo un reporte a la policía, so vale la pena hablar en privado en una consulta. Sin vergüenza, 7 Dems who voted for ICE. Shall we say their name again, y'all? These are the 7 Democrats who voted for expanded funding for ICE last week. Henry Cuellar in Texas. Why is he still in office, you guys? Tom Suozzi, New York. Vicente Gonzalez in Texas. Laura Gillen in New York. Marie Gluesenkamp Perez in Washington. Jared Golden in Maine. Don Davis in North Carolina. Democrats who voted for more DHS funding last week. Call them. Tell them, shame on you. We look forward to the day when you are not coming back into your office. You don't deserve it. Shame. I was a victim of a crime at work. Does that give me any immigrant protection? Maybe. So victims of crime can qualify for crime victims visas depending on the crime, especially if it was like exploitative or violent crime. Generally, those are the ones. And you make a police report. Also, if you worked under conditions of abuse, and sometimes that can go in line. If there was a crime at work and the work didn't protect you or they threatened you, maybe you could qualify for a T visa, a trafficking visa. So let's talk. Let's have a consultation and we can explore options for you. Oh, this is a great question on Instagram. When is the appropriate time, in my opinion, to actually fight back? Not now. Not now. I think that we're not in a civil war at this point. We are still in a moment where our democracy is functioning, but it's hanging on by a thread. But what we're seeing is Congress starting to wake up from its slumber. And so now, in my opinion, is the time to push for and fight for our democracy. It is the time to tell Congress to register to vote, to get to the people who are disengaged and oblivious to what's going on, to file lawsuits, to use our federal court system, to really exercise the checks and balances that our founders envisioned. Our democracy is being tested right now. And what happens is if we go violent, we descend into civil war. They will use the Insurrection Act to come and quell the violence against its own people, and there will be deaths and destruction, and who knows if we will recover. So, in my opinion, we still fight for our democracy. We are still fighting for our democracy. And I'm not going to hypothetically describe the moment in which we get violent, but I'll be there. We'll be talking about it when it if it occurs. Hopefully it does not. Okay, follow up. This is an interesting live, y'all. This the switch between like the descent of our democracy into civil war to technical questions about immigration cases, but that's what we're here for. Let's do it. So yes, you filed for an I-730 when the I-94 was valid. It was filed while being in a B2 status. Okay, what I would need to research is whether the 730 keeps you in legal status. That's one I don't know off the top of my head, and I would need to research. And it's hopeful. Let's say I feel hopeful that we could do an adjustment, but I would need to research it. So will you DM me and we'll do a consultation? This is a Spanish one. Entré 2 veces con visa, tengo 22 años en Texas, ¿qué posibilidad tengo de arreglar? Tenemos que discutir sus familiares y otras cosas. Debemos consultar. This is someone who tells me a little bit about their case, but not enough for me to give advice. So consultation. We still have, I think we're booking 3 or 4 days out right now. So we're probably booked through Saturday, maybe. I don't know. I haven't checked. But we're still able to give consultations pretty fast. I'm hiring more people. If you want to come work at my law firm, by the way, and you know immigration stuff, send an email to jobs@Lincoln-Goldfinch.com or DM me. We are hiring good people. We have a really good work environment. Despite the hard work that we do, our culture is really strong. Our people are really awesome, really smart, really mission focused. It's a good place to work. So if you want to come fight the good fight with us, DM me. Angel, I recognize you. Recibió mi caso de no he escuchado nada por VAWA en abril. Ángel, si metió su caso en abril, debe de tener un recibo. No sé si has recibido el recibo de inmigración. Cuéntame. Okay, let's do 2 more questions, guys. Actually, okay. My case was handled. Sorry to clear my throat. I know that's gross. It's the winter. What can I say? My case was handled by another attorney and didn't move forward. Can I get a second opinion? Yeah, for sure. We do second opinion consultations, many of them. And we'll tell you if you don't need to do anything. I regularly have consultations with people who are with lawyers that I know, and I respect them and trust them. And I say, you're in good hands. This is normal. All is fine. So, well, I'll tell you. Okay, Maria, is it recommended to keep renewing DACA if you file for a green card through a spouse? Yes. Generally, always good to have plan A and plan B. If you are eligible for 2 or even 3 different types of immigration status, until you have a green card in your hand, keep the other ones alive. Keep all your balls juggled in the air until you've got the green card. Are your open roles remote? Chispa de bomba? Yeah, the majority of our people work remote. 90% of the people work remote. It's a remote workforce, but we stay very connected through chat and other stuff like that. How can we help? Let's stick to what we want. Let's stick to our action item. And it's one that often gets repeated and ignored and tossed aside for very understandable reasons. But please, if you haven't called your legislators yet, do it today. Do it today. Don't worry about you don't know what to say. It's so easy. Go to 5calls, the number 5.org. You give it your zip code. It'll spit out the people that you call and the number. It'll even give you a script. But honestly, you don't even have to have a script. You're leaving a message on a voicemail, or you're talking to a staffer who's taking your message. That's how simple it is. You're not going to all of a sudden be put through to the senator. Okay. So you're like, my name is Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch. I live in this zip code. I want you not to fund DHS this week. The end. That's how easy it is. So can you do it? If you haven't done it, can you do it before the end of the day today? Because we have momentum. 5 calls said they were getting 4 calls every second, or 1 call every 4 seconds. I can't remember, over the weekend. A lot of calls. And we're seeing all the Republicans coming out and saying something. It is working. We have momentum. Keep pushing. Don't let up. So could you give money to Minnesota? Yes, I've shared websites for that. Could you donate? Could you volunteer? Yes, all of that stuff. Yes. But today is the day to get out your phone and call a legislator if you haven't done it yet. This is the moment. That's how we can help right now, especially the Republicans or one of these 7 Democrats who voted for the funding. How about everybody call Henry Cuellar and tell him we're so embarrassed? Okay, last question. This is kind of a long one in Spanish. Fui deportado de Estados Unidos hacia El Salvador con salida voluntaria. Tenía mi proceso activo a las 730 por parte de mi mamá. Ella es residente permanente, pero tuve una cita con inmigración, me detuvo, tengo un récord limpio. ¿Qué proceso debo seguir para volver a entrar a Estados Unidos? Cuando la I-130 es aprobada, hacemos el proceso consular. Podemos ayudar mándame un mensaje para una consulta y podemos ayudarte. Okay, action item of the week. Call your legislators. Actually do it this time. For real. Just leave a message. We want their inbox. What they do is they take some staffer, some intern, checks the message box, and they make a tally. People who are for it, people who are against it, and then they show it to the legislator. It's that simple. And what we need is the against ICE tally to swallow the for ICE tally. And there are still these people, believe it or not, they are still alive and kicking. So over here, can we please drown out these voices? And that means call your legislator. That's your action item of the day. Nos vemos el jueves en español. Oh, I see one more thing coming in. I'll see you guys on Thursday in Spanish. Oh, I'm running in District 50, Texas House of Representatives, District 50. But honestly, guys, although as a representative of 50, which is Northeast Austin, I represent the people of District 50, a legislator in Texas impacts policy for all Texans. So if you live in Texas or you care about Texas, I could use your support. You can volunteer. You can follow my page. You can donate to my campaign. The election is March 3rd, but early voting starts February 17th. We need somebody like me in the Capitol, somebody who has been fighting for immigrants all this time, not just last weekend. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, thanks for being here with me. As always, nos vemos el jueves. Bye, guys.